My name is Jim Kohl. I'm Executive Vice President of Sales and Marketing with Fathom. We are a digital marketing firm based in Cleveland, Ohio, and we most often serve clients in B2B verticals, SaaS, and others. What ties all of these clients and partners together is that the purchase cycle for their customers, clients, and constituents is a long, complex, fuzzy, unknown, and sometimes harrowing life cycle. And we're here for it. I'm here with Steve Kessen. Steve is Fathom's CEO, and I'm also joined by Chuck Baddley. Chuck is our EVP of Digital Solutions. So pleased to have you both. I have one question as we get underway, and that is, Steve, you are our CEO. Chuck, you are our EVP of Digital Solutions. What is your role at Fathom?
So my role as CEO at Fathom really is foster an environment for incredible success for our customers and for our team members here at Fathom. So we have been on an incredible journey delivering great value to this B2B and consider purchase B2C audience. And, my job as the CEO is really to steward the vision of the organization and create an environment for team members to grow, create value for clients, and to grow themselves.
And Chuck?
Yeah, so my role here at Fathom is I have the opportunity to support our digital solutions organization. Primarily what we do is we help our clients to understand who their customers are, and we provide marketing services. So we have expertise in analytics, we have expertise in various channels, whether it's paid search, display, SEO, marketing automation. We bring a really strong expertise in creative solutions. So just making sure the whole package comes together. So at the end of the day, it really is about helping our clients to drive results with their customers, whether that's a direct conversion, whether it's signing up for an appointment, or whether it's getting an application into a university. That's what we do.
These are the things that marketers care about at their businesses.
Absolutely.
We had the pleasure to attend a virtual summit put on by Forrester B2B. As many know, Serious Decisions was acquired by Forrester. And so this was the first Serious Decisions Summit that was conducted under the Forrester brand and Forrester experience. And there was a lot of consistency. If you've been to a Forrester event, then this would have felt very, very familiar, even in the virtual format. We had the pleasure of recapping each day, and those daily recaps are available not only on our website, but also on our YouTube channel. And if you haven't listened, I would encourage you to take the 10 or 15 minutes per day to check those out and just get some highlights from some of the key content that we experienced throughout the week. Today is a broader conversation, a higher level conversation about the event overall. And so I'm really excited, Chuck, to have you here today because we didn't get a chance to really debrief a whole lot on the event in a recap, but I know we can plumb some depths here. So we're going to spend our time with a little bit of a broad overview of the event, but also diving deeply into a few areas that we found interesting, and then talk through some of the implications as it relates to the needs of the marketer today. Steve, 4 days of Forrester content. A week later, what sticks with you?
Jim, I would say a few things. One, it was just nice to be in community with other marketers last week. I know it was virtual and not the same as us being together in Austin, but I really enjoyed the opportunity just to immerse myself in a conference-like environment to really spend some time with people I don't get a chance to spend time with on a regular basis. So just the fact of being together at a conference was great. In terms of some of the key ideas, I would say I thought they delivered extraordinarily well on each of the keynote sessions. I think the fact of the role of marketing has changed, and we need to bring an agent for change as the marketer is one of the things that came forward on Tuesday that I thought was something that resonated with something I talk about quite often. Wednesday they had the building trust element. So I thought Forrester did a nice job of bringing, I would say, some overarching topics of this, I would say, shift that has been happening in marketing and continues to happen. And I thought they did a nice job of bringing those ideas forward, going into the depths of those. And then the breakout sessions were an opportunity to maybe hear some things that, we might not hear every day. So overall, I would say I enjoyed the sessions.
Chuck, for you, if you could give the event a color or a temperature or a flavor.
I would say it was hot. I love this is I'm relatively new to B2B. I'm not new to Forrester, so I've known Forrester well. I've never been to a conference of theirs. They seem on task. I mean, they seem to understand what the challenges are, especially around some of the data issues with third-party, first-party cookie stuff. Talking about relevancy, even in the B2B space, was really a pleasant surprise for me. I was excited. I would say it was hot.
One of the things I took away is not talking about innovation, but rather just innovating in the way that we think about marketing, in the way that we work with others across the organization, cross-functionally. You could be annoyed at looking at much of this content and suggesting, why are we always changing this? This is simply Forrester's business model to now change this framework, add this layer in. If you were a cynical person, of course I am not that. And so what I actually really enjoyed is that they are continuing to advance their thinking, their frameworks, their model, their research, their data to help today's marketer get closer to not only the reality of the world today, but how to overcome some challenges.
To that end, the new revenue model that they brought forward was a lot more depth. It went from 6 elements or 7 elements to about 13. And that's actually a theme that I felt consistently through the seminar. And I'm not sure if that's what you guys picked up as well or not. But I think that actually just points to the fact that marketing has become much more complex. And so there is great power in simplification, but when simplification doesn't really provide the value that you need it to, you need to go deeper. And I felt that was a theme that came through over the course of the 4 days.
I would agree with that. I'm like you, Jim. I'm probably a little bit of a cynic, but when I first saw that they were re-engineering the model, I thought, of course they are, right? You've got to keep things fresh and keep the perspective moving. But it made sense. And one of the things about marketing, regardless of how sophisticated it is, it's also very simple. So when you looked at what they proposed, it was common sense. It made complete sense. It's a framework to follow for success. And so I was very quickly converted from cynic to, I was all in. So I thought it was a great proposal.
Steve, I'd like to start with you. You gave us sort of your overall perspective on the event. I'd ask that you go to the other end of the spectrum and sort of dive deeply into one session or area of content that you found meaningful and significant as we get more and more distance away from the event.
What Forrester introduced were really 7 layers of trust. And I thought this helped create a usable framework, quite honestly, on how to think about trust in terms of the 7 different levers. So they were accountability, right? That's something that we would expect. But accountability, competence, consistency, dependability, empathy, integrity, and transparency.
And did they define accountability? Because I think that can be often a confused term where we don't have shared definitions. So what, in this case, that lever is defined as what?
Their definition for accountability was you account for your activities and accept responsibilities for them.
Say that again?
You account for your activities and accept responsibility for them. So more or less, it's you own up to what happened, right? Things happen. You made a decision as a brand, as a person, whatever it may be, and you really take a full sense of responsibility for what happened with that.
What's interesting to me is that there is a premise there, or maybe a preface to owning up, and that is knowing what happened. You take account for something that happened or will happen, and then you own the responsibility for that. And I think that's a piece that eludes a lot of marketers today. Do we know what happened? Or did we take account of that marketing investment, that strategy?
Well, that's the biggest challenge the marketer's facing today. How do I measure the impact of what I'm doing? And I am more accountable, using that word again. The marketer is more accountable for driving revenue than ever before.
Why is that so hard? You called that the marketer's top challenge. What is so difficult about that? Chuck, what's your experience? You've got a lot of meaningful experience in the analytics world from a variety of organizations across industries?
That's a great question. And I think, it's funny when Steve mentioned it, he mentioned the back end. And I think what most marketers don't do is measurement starts on the front end. So it's going in with an intentional strategy that you think is going to achieve something and knowing in advance, what do I think it's going to achieve? So we don't have a lot of forecasting. We don't have a lot of benchmarking. Most marketers will attack a tactic or a strategy first. Then they'll stop and say, how do we go figure out all the data that we needed on the back end to measure what happened? So I think it starts by being very intentional up front and figuring out what you're going to do. A great example I was giving to somebody today is when you go into retirement planning, you already have a goal of where you want to be in a plan of how you're going to get there. Then on a monthly basis, you start checking your portfolio to say, am I meeting my objectives and goals along the way? But we don't do that with marketing. We just start buying stocks or start buying bonds, and every month, well, how are we doing? And it's you don't know what you're marketing against or working towards. So I think it starts on the front end. Then we can start having the conversation about capturing data and attribution and so forth. But that's the biggest gap that I see today.
I can see the book cover by Chuck Baddley. The title is this: All Marketing is Hypothesis Marketing. You start with a hypothesis around what you're doing, and then you can measure against it to see whether it's producing against that hypothesis.
Absolutely. And there can be data-driven components to those hypotheses. So whether it's just benchmarking things or looking at what your current customer base is doing or whatever those types of things are, you need to have that benchmark because then you're placing a bet on how am I going to change the outcomes.
Steve, we sidestepped the conversation. We started talking about trust that led us down the path to accountability, which led us down the path to measurement, which is something obviously we all get a little excited about. Let's go back to trust. What else from that content will stick with you over the coming weeks and months?
I would say one of the elements that stuck with me is actually a quote. It's a Warren Buffett quote, but I think it really adequately brings this into focus. And the quote goes, "I learned to go into business only with people whom I like, trust, and admire." So that is Warren Buffett, right? The legendary Oracle of Omaha perspective on who he chooses to do business with. Trust is at the heart, especially in the B2B space, of who you choose to do business with. I won't go into all of the depth of the Forrester session. I would encourage people to go consume this content if they get the opportunity. But they broke down into a 9-box framework on the way that you activate trust as you think about 2 dimensions. You have buyer risk and you have buyer reward. In different industries, different company profiles have a set of conditions in which the trust element presents itself in one fashion or another. So what I liked about the Forrester model is they took this really ambiguous or kind of hard to wrangle concept of trust. They gave us 7 levers from a definition standpoint, and then this 9-box framework that helped activate for the marketer. How do I, as a marketer, start to establish trust with my potential audience? And how do I go about doing that differently based on the context of the client, based on the context of the industry or the situation in which I'm in? That is something that I know we will take with us as we help our clients navigate this really dynamic environment.
Let's move on to another segment. If you'll give me the chance to share, it is the topic of revenue operations. The subtitle of this session was Driving Business Benefits Along the Demand Spectrum. We talked about how at this event, there was a lot less talk about innovation and more innovation at play in their work and research, which I really valued. This session brought forward by Julian Archer and Bob Peterson, both principal analysts with Forrester. And the analogy that they set this session up with was the difference between 100 years, 1900 versus 2000. And what was it like to go discover treasures with precision and efficiency in 1900, physical treasures, versus 2000 or modern day? And that was an interesting set of imagery as you look at people mining for gold or on an archaeological site versus how we can use technology today to be much more precise and efficient in the way that we go looking for things that are deemed treasures. Obviously, translating that to the life and world of the marketer, how are we with precision and efficiency going out into the market to find treasure in terms of our most valued and profitable customers? What I really think they did a great job with, they have, like the waterfall, they have this sort of product or model called the Forrester Demand Spectrum. It essentially is a playbook of sorts for different types of marketers. And this is really where I think the value is. They made room in the world for marketers not all being the same. We talked after one of the days last week, are they sort of treating all marketers as ABM marketers?
Right.
To some degree. I mean, that's a little bit a result of us being in that focus. But in this case, they talk about what is it like to be a demand marketer? What is it like to be more focused as a vertical marketer? What is it like if you're going to market on named accounts, or how do you tackle large account marketing? And that these are different models for marketers to recognize that they're operating within. And they took it a level deeper. When you're thinking about successful alignment of go-to-market functions, and go-to-market functions they're defining as marketing and marketing operations, sales and sales operations, and in some business models, even customer success or customer service operations, that the successful alignment of those teams and functions almost exclusively depends on the nature of internal executive relationships.
Jim, what say you to that?
It speaks to me. One of the words I would use to describe myself is relational. And so that is my experience across all of the organizations I've been in, despite me not being an executive in all of those organizations. So that's my own experience as I've navigated how to partner and collaborate with others. It's also been an observation as I look from a distance in terms of how functions sort of follow the leadership of their executives and their executives' ability to build a bridge, to build a relationship. And so it resonated with me from personal experience. I just sort of had a chuckle that with all of this research, all of these models, all of these frameworks, it's all about relationships. It's all about working with people. And you could have the greatest model, the greatest insight, the greatest business. If you don't have 2 or 3 or 4 people that are working together, those ideas aren't going to go anywhere. So any reactions?
Yeah, I think that's an interesting point because we tend to approach it from the other way. We preach against silos, but what we don't preach is collaboration and relationships and bringing things together. And I think it's devastating. And going back to what Steve said about trust, when you're talking about whether it's a client's customers or your customer, that relevancy in communication comes from understanding and having empathy on who that person is, what they want. So that one-on-one connection is what drives trust. So whether that's through a marketing campaign or working with a peer, at the desk next to you or across a function, building those relationships almost always. The old cliche, 1 + 1 = 3, right? And that is so true. So those trust factors are dependent upon it. And then you're also enabling people to bring their expertise to the table. So your expertise, my expertise, Steve's expertise working together bring something significantly bigger than the individual pieces. And that trust and collaboration is critical for success. Again, whether it's a marketing campaign or operationally across a business.
What do you think this means for our clients? And what does it mean for the expertise we bring to our clients?
I think the biggest issue that we see in any organization, ours, our clients, whatever it may be, is the lack of unity. So it is lack of bringing it together. So how this plays out is sometimes we're taking direction from 2 or 3 different sources. It makes it really difficult for us to help find success for our clients. And I know operationally within an organization, they may be feeling the same way. They got the CEO giving direction to 2 or 3, next level executives, and then they're going off and giving very different or disparate direction to their teams, and it just doesn't come together. So it's detrimental for sure. And you see it, like I said, across the board.
Yeah, I think we have a responsibility to bring people together. And sometimes that is help facilitating bringing people together. And sometimes it's those side coaching conversations to help, increase the empathy and put yourself in their shoes. We all need that tug every once in a while to help get us focused on what really matters. So no, this is actually a really powerful statement. And, I'll bring the perspective of being a CEO and leading a business. I would say one of my greatest areas of responsibility and focus is executive team alignment. As the executive team goes, the organization goes. And what I see as important in that is a depth of alignment to our vision, a depth of alignment to our values, and a commitment to be arm in arms together to work through the challenge, because those are going to happen. And I think you also need to take time to celebrate. And that's a hard thing to do as us hard-charging marketers. Often we have a hard time maybe stepping back and appreciating, the great work in which we do together. But I will tell you, I wholeheartedly, 100% agree with the Forrester comment that alignment between executives drives an organizational success, and it will create failure if they're not tight.
So clients should be put on notice, and those who might consider working with Fathom, you can expect that we are going to push you towards greater alignment, collaboration, and relationship with your colleagues in order to be a more successful marketer.
It's the only way.
I agree 100% with what you said, because having been client side for many, many years in many different organizations, we were very siloed and we were pulling against each other with our own objectives. Unfortunately, we never had an agency that helped pull that together. And, sitting here hindsight, I would have valued that significantly more than the physical work that they would have done for us, because there are a lot of agencies that we could find to do that work. There are a lot of agencies that bring that skill set or those capabilities to the table. But having somebody solve I say this to Steve all the time, what keeps people up at night? That would keep me up at night. Not working together holistically as a company for a common customer, the customer at the middle of it, could absolutely determine success or failure. And I will say Fathom's great at that. I think Fathom has an exceptional ability to lead the client and bring that big picture holistic view to the table.
Okay, Chuck, so Forrester B2B Summit, what are your takeaways overall? I'm at heart, I'm a customer-centric, drive results type guy, right? And for me, I had mentioned earlier, I didn't realize the B2B space was so similar to the B2C space in the sense that you're serving a customer. And those marketing messages need to be relevant. Those marketing messages need to be the right customer or audience, the right content, the right time, the right channel. And that was a pleasant eye-opener for me that need is there. I also really saw a lot about the CMO and the role of the CMO to lead that. It's critical, and they need to be the champion for that cause. I saw there was a great session called Marketing in Motion, and they talked about not just having that CMO be the leader of where are we going strategically, making sure we have the technology and everything in play, but it talked about culture. It talked about emotion. The CMO can lead the emotion of the organization and the culture of the organization. So that to me was important. And then, of course, everything after that was first day. I saw those little patterns and themes throughout it. Yeah, you saw the standard. You have to be relevant. You have to have your data aligned. You have to have great value propositions. But I think that CMO role, I think we don't give CMOs enough credit. They lay awake at night thinking about everything that they have to bring to the table and solve. So I saw those little pieces stitched out throughout the whole week. Earlier, we were riffing on measurement.
There's always an entry point back to measurement, Jim. So I think when we talked about measurement before, we talked about the front end measurement. And measurement, I think sometimes we think about measurement as really technical. I think sometimes we think about, measurement's going to give me the answer that I need. But measurement's broad. And one of the things that we talk about here at Fathom is that analytics is a mindset, right? It's not a tool, it's not a report, it's a mindset. It's a mindset of curiosity. How do I make better decisions? What information do I need to make better decisions? So as I talked about having some of that intelligence on the front end or some of that guidance on the front end, when we talk about the back end measurement, it becomes very tactical. We start talking about reports. Again, I listened in on a great session where they were talking about companies that use analytics for driving decisions have 30% higher customer value over time. And those are big numbers. You just think about an increase of your customer lifetime value of 30%. But what was really cool about this session is they talked about the showstoppers. And most of them weren't technology. So technology and skills were 3 and 4. The first 2 were that people only look at information to understand what happened yesterday. Like is the number bigger or smaller than yesterday? What they don't do is understand why. What drove or what drives those numbers to be better or worse over time? And the second piece is forward-looking. And we're guilty of this sometimes. Our clients are guilty of this sometimes. We're so focused on backwards looking, we don't say what's going to happen tomorrow if we continue to do the things that we're doing today. If the customer base tends to trend the same way, or if our marketing campaigns perform the same way. So it goes back to what you said earlier. Let's go put some hypotheses around those, what's driving it, and say what would drive it to be different. So that excites me. That gets me really excited because all of that is at the root of relevancy. How are we more relevant in our marketing campaigns? And every CMO is excited about driving results. So if we're going to drive results, we're going to have to embrace this whole concept of measurement.
Let's wrap up at a high level. I had a friend, I think, wisely say to me, as a culture, as a society, we elect the politicians we deserve. So to use that for this event, did marketers get the content they deserve? Meaning, what is this content that Forrester is bringing forward? What does it say about the state of the marketer today and our greatest needs? Is this content a reflection of marketers today? Is it a mirror held up, showing back what marketers need most? Or is it something else?
No, I would say it's a reflection of what marketers need today, not necessarily what marketers are doing today. So I think the content, I thought there was a healthy dose of challenge in the content. There was a healthy dose of challenge around, hey, we were living in this cookieless world. It's time to get going on that. There's a healthy dose of challenge in Mr. or Mrs. Marketer. It's now time for you to reach across the other parts of the organization, and you have a job to be a connector and a collaborator throughout the entirety of the organization. I felt that they did a nice job of, would I call it a mirror? I don't know. I would call it maybe a peer into the future as to what the marketer needed to hear. And, it's on all of us to go activate against it and make it happen. Chuck,
is this content a mirror or a windshield?
I'm not sure, but my perspective goes back to something you said a minute ago when you were talking about treasure hunting. So treasure hunting 100 years ago versus treasure hunting recently. The message that we heard is not a new message. It has been around for decades. I think the new opportunity here is the means by which you're hunting that treasure continue to evolve. They evolve every year. They evolve every month, right? As technology evolves and as restrictions pop up and new walled gardens exist and so forth, and the marketing game changes, the story doesn't change. We need to understand what we're doing as marketers, what we're trying to achieve, understand the landscape in which we're playing, understand the tools that are at our disposal to do that, and act. I think the biggest challenge is people freeze. It's too big, it's too overwhelming. Start small, right? Just start small with the stuff that seems simple, common sense, move the needle, keep going forward. So I think if anything, is it a mirror? Is it a windshield? Maybe I'll go with mirror. Look in the mirror. Why am I not acting? How am I going to take that first step forward and begin to go down that path and move forward?
Wise words. Thank you both.
Thanks, Jim.